Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special live hangout program with retired astronaut Nicole Stott, also the artistic astronaut. We on Astronomers Without Borders featured Nicole during September as the AstroArtist of the Month, and we were delighted to have her there. I'm Mike Simmons, the founder and president of Astronomers Without Borders, and I'm getting feedback. And I'm sorry, I've got a little technical thing. Liam, behind the scenes there, for some reason, I'm getting...
Say, Mike, I think that's probably because, are you playing the video out on one of your windows there? It could be that the YouTube video is playing out.
Okay, sorry, everybody. I was trying to watch the chat box for questions there. That's what it was. So anyway, start again. I'm Mike Simmons. I'm founder and president of Astronomers Without Borders. Nicole Stott is with us, and also Daniela DePaulis, the founder and director of our AstroArtist program on Astronomers Without Borders. Nicole joins us from her home in Florida, surrounded by memorabilia of her flights in space and amazing art as well. And we're going to talk not just about what it's like to fly in space and all these things that all of the astronauts get questions about, but really about the connection between science and art. So welcome, Nicole. It's been a delight to have your postings on Astronomers Without Borders website last month, and to have you here in this special program.
Well, thanks a lot for inviting me, and it really means a lot, actually. And to do that AstroArtist blog piece was, I mean, I was really very humbled to get asked to do that, because I've seen who's done it before. And, lots of really impressive space-themed artwork out there and beautiful work. And so for you guys to include me really, really meant a lot.
Well, I think it was very important. And Daniela, I'll ask you a question real quick and say, you choose the artists, and yes. What did you see in Nicole's art that meant to you that we had to have her on our program?
Well, I first of all, I'm really honored we have Nicole Stott in our program, and well, I have to be honest. I saw her presentation of an exhibition she had recently in the UK, and I was immediately very interested in the kind of painting she makes, because all the art that we come across that is painted by space artists, for example, is very realistic, and I really appreciate the fact that she really includes her own interpretation of the views of the Earth seen from space, and I really love that quality, how she can combine her artistic vision with the realistic images of the Earth. So I thought that was quite unique, and yeah, I think it's always great to hear from people who have these views directly to hear more about it, because it's a form of painting, landscape painting of the future.
So, Nicole, I'm going to back up a little bit and do the obligatory background, but largely because it does not necessarily, reading your bio, it doesn't seem like you were headed for a career in art. So you are an aerospace engineer. You started at NASA, and you as an engineer, and then eventually said, I'm helping these guys get up into space. I can do that too. Is it something like that?
Okay, maybe. Yeah, a little bit like
that. So your background, as an engineer and as an astronaut doing science, when did your interest in the art side of the human experience take off?
Well, I think it's always been there. I think for anybody that that we find, I think most of the times both sides of the brain are working as one, and there's just a little bit more going on at different times, in one than the other. But for me, I always liked artistic things. I grew up with a dad who built and flew small airplanes. And so we had woodworking and crafting going on in the garage all the time, painting for building airplanes. And so I got my hands on things early. And I think that, along with having a mom who sewed and built things and was very crafty, they brought me into both of those worlds. And I loved it. I loved making Christmas cards and doing woodworking myself. And most of what I did as artwork along the way was gifts that I would give to other people. And it was cool to me because I think, there's joy in that, for the person you're giving something to, but you also get, you get a really good feeling by being the one who's presenting the gift. And but that shift from the Astro to Arts thing, which I wrote a little bit about in the blog, I think came more as I was really trying to figure out how, as I transition from astronaut to my next adventure, whatever that would be, how do I best communicate this spaceflight experience I was blessed to have? And I think we all try to figure out a unique way to do that. And for me, the art just kept coming up as the way that made the most sense. Mm-hmm. And I was lucky to paint in space, so that painting that I did in space has really been my inspiration for all of the work that I've continued to do since then.
Well, we're going to get to that too, and we have here, I think Naim has brought up a picture of your father in a little plane, but you went from flying in the atmosphere to flying outside of it. We got a few pictures of that experience leading up to eventually the painting here that I'd like to show. Here we have, so this is sort of the class photo in space. Yeah. Everybody trying to keep themselves from floating away. This is International Space Station Expedition 20 and 21. So this is one of those times when you have a group coming in and another group ready to depart.
Yeah, that picture, and you talk about us all trying to hold from floating away. We actually have quite a few pictures where we are floating, yes. Floating away. There's you put the intervalometer on the camera and let it go, and it's really quite funny. And but I love this picture because they're all the guys that I spent my time on station with, and from all around the world, which I think is one of the most beautiful things about our space station program. And in addition to professional astronauts and cosmonauts in this picture, we also have a gentleman named Guy Laliberté, who he's if you're looking at the picture, he's the second from the left between Frank and Gennady. And Guy was the founder of Cirque du Soleil.
Right.
And so he flew us, and talk about artist in space. This guy is a beautiful example of that. And he was very excited about figuring out how to share and express that experience with the whole planet. And I think he did a whole Cirque du Soleil show about it, and was cool to have time with him up there too, and see somebody have it from that perspective, experience the space flight.
Well, in terms of experience the space flight and the idea of seeing the Earth, the next picture we have of you here shows the golden opportunity for that, which I am so glad they put up there. Maybe not as glad as you are and the others that get a chance to look through it. Just spending a few minutes in this cupola with all those windows for me would be worth the trip by itself. But there you are with the Earth. Well, we always want to say below you, but it's not below, it's not up, it's just there.
Kind of behind you, I guess. I don't know how you really look at that when there's no up or down.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is a wonderful place. And when I flew the first time, we did not have that module there. And so all of the Earth viewing that I did was from, kind of planar windows, Earth-facing windows, or we have a couple windows in the Japanese module that give you a kind of a horizon side view. But, nothing I think can prepare you for what that cupola does, for you as far as seeing the Earth, seeing your own spaceship. The views you have of your own spaceship are incredible from that module. And so as a workstation, where we have our robotics workstation there now, so we fly the big arm with the computers from inside the cupola now. So in addition to using computer views to figure out, are you clear and not going to hit things when you're moving the arm around, you literally can just float up and look and see, is the arm going to hit that, or where's Jim on the end of the arm, and just incredible, just incredible.
So I imagine somebody in the cupola waving to the person outside, going, little more, little more.
Yeah. The beeper on, beep, beep, back it up kind of thing. But yeah, and I think that especially with an Astronomers Without Borders perspective on this. A lot of us are vying for the structural test article for another cupola module to be actually flight rated and sent and put on the zenith side of the space station, space facing, right, which I think would just be incredible, to be able to really just go to a dark space and look out to the deep space that way. And again, it would be a wonderful workstation too, to be able to inspect the rest of your space station and, and do robotic work from there. But that expanse of space that you don't get to see a lot of from the station would just be, open up a whole new world.
Well, a whole universe, and that, of course, that's what us astronomers would really like to see. If there's someplace you can cut out all the light from the station itself and just see the universe as it is. There's the next photo shows you getting a different perspective on the space station as you are perhaps approaching on Discovery, coming in, and I love pictures like this that show from the outside. You just get more of a feeling of the context of this is where you are. You're in the shuttle looking out.
This is in the top 3 of my favorite pictures from flying in space. And my friend and crewmate Steve Bowen took that picture. He was actually out on a spacewalk at that time, probably at the end of Columbus. So we were already docked with the station, and I was the IV crew member, the person inside, the choreographer for the spacewalk. And I don't know if that's just me in the window or if Steve Lindsay is in the window too. We did a couple where we're just, kind of waving out, but I love it. I think it gives, it has the shuttle in it, which, to me, is such an important part of our space program. And it's tied there with the space station and the scale of it too, to see our little tiny heads in that window, with respect to the overall scale of the shuttle itself and the station, and the way the light is on the vehicle at that time, just really beautiful.
And the shuttle is far bigger than most people realize.
Oh,
and the space station is huge. I mean, we don't get any idea how big it is down here, except once in a while. And I think this next picture is probably one of your top 3 as well, I'm guessing, where you really had the best view of all.
Oh, yeah. And this is the one where I kind of joke, because this is the one where I can really tell that, or understand maybe why my mom was probably freaking out scared about, me out on a spacewalk, because, I realized where I was and I'm hanging on with one hand and tethered and everything, but that picture is just a real beautiful presentation of where you are. I mean, hanging out at the edge of a space station, getting ready to strap into the robotic arm to move from the station down to the shuttle, and just incredible. Yeah.
So, and this, I think, talking to your pal Ron Guerin and some others, is where you really get the view of the Earth in context, that it's just a planet in space with stars around it and everything, that you see it as our spaceship, and which leads to the overview effect as well that we've talked about. Is that, you want to expound on that a little bit, and the significance of that view that we get from there?
Yeah, I think, this is, when you do a spacewalk, for sure, you're separating yourself from your crew and from the security of the space station or the space shuttle in a way that's, that's very different to anything you do up there. And, you're in your own little personal spaceship then, your own spacecraft around you that's keeping you alive and everything. And while that visor, looks big, it's really pretty small. You don't have a lot of, you know, if you want to look at something to the left, you got to turn your whole body, you know, to look that direction. You can't just turn your head inside there. So you have kind of a limited view, but it was really interesting to me how you can have such a limited view through the visor, but what is presented in front of you just seems like it goes on forever. Any way you look, it seems like it is just going on forever. And if you've got the Earth in that view, it's the most beautiful horizon to horizon presentation of our planet, of, yes, our spaceship, like you said, that you can imagine. And then I think you take that way you've seen it through that little visor, and you go inside of the station and you're in the cupola module where you have this big, huge bay window that then presents it to you, and or through one of those windows of the space shuttle. And you start to get kind of this familiarity with the planet that's just, I mean, it's a very spiritual kind of thing as well. And I think that's why it's so important that we have humans in space, because I think it's like anything where right now I can look at the pictures and videos of having been there, and they're really beautiful, but they still just don't get what you see with your own eyes. And I think it's because with our eyes, we've got, you know, our heart is involved with that too when we're looking at something. And I think the more we can share this perspective of Earth with everyone, so that we all that we really take on that earthling, you know, that earthling perspective on things, that we think of ourselves from this one place traveling through space on this planet as earthlings. And and those views from space, I think, are the best way for us to do that, until we can get more and more people up there seeing it for themselves.
Yeah.
Nicole, I'd like to talk a little bit more about this, because we had a very interesting conversation earlier during our rehearsal. And I would be curious to know how really introspectively this image, this experience of being outside of the space station and looking at the Earth from such a fragile and a unique perspective, how eventually did it remain in your mind? Because I can imagine that while you are experiencing that, you are busy with some tasks, so maybe there is not much time to really reflect upon that. But how did that affect you later on? Is there anything that you can pinpoint on that experience that you bring with you and changed you maybe as a person?
Well, I think, you know, a little bit of what I just said is that it's a connectivity thing, I think. And you're right. You know, when you're out on a spacewalk, if you're just daydreaming about the view, or it's very easy to get distracted by that view. But you're not really thinking too much about it at the time. You're thinking about getting your tether in the right place. You're thinking about making sure you do your tasks properly and everything, and that your crewmate who's out there with you is safe and getting through their work as well. But it is one of the most interesting things that I think I've ever had the opportunity to reflect on afterwards. And that's why I love having these pictures too, is because it kind of puts me back in that place a little bit and allows me to appreciate again where I was, but looking at it a little bit differently. You know, being able to, almost like with videos, being able to watch myself having done it. It's the most surreal thing. But I think that the spacewalk, as well as this opportunity to look at our planet the way that you have from space, it's an interesting kind of contrast between feeling separated in a way that you never have been before. Like when you launch to space, I mean, you're separating yourself from Earth in a way that you don't do any other, you know, there's nothing else that compares to it. You're all this energy to just get off the planet. I mean, it's really difficult to get off the planet and out of gravity and into space. And then once you're there, you're like, wow, I'm away from home like I've never been before. And there is a feeling of separation there. And the same thing when you go out and do a spacewalk, you're like, holy moly, I'm in this, you know, little spacesuit all by myself and crawling around the space station all by myself. But it was interesting to me at the same time to feel more connected than I ever did before as well. more connected to the people on the planet. When I would look out at Earth, I'm like, everybody I know is there. Besides the 5 people that are with me on the space station, everybody that I know, everybody that I will ever meet in my life is down there on that planet. And that's there's a connection that you can't deny when you look at that. And the same thing happened on the spacewalk, feeling so separated in the suit by myself, crawling around, listening to myself breathe and stuff. But at the same time, knowing, okay, my family's watching me from the ground. My crewmate is, 20 feet from me on the other side of this module, and my crew is inside, making sure that I'm going to be okay. And it's a really powerful experience to have. And I think, though, that there are things that happen to us here on Earth together that same kind of feeling, happens for us. And we just got to take advantage of those feelings and do something with them.
And you also mentioned that your dream experience changed before and after your space travel experience.
Yeah, that's that's an interesting thing to think about. I slept better in space than I have ever slept before. It's the most liberating, just relaxing kind of way to sleep, and floating in your sleeping bag there, and dreaming was. It was kind of weird to recognize it at some point, that my dreams changed a little bit. And I think it's like everything else we do. Once you incorporate an experience, like really have an experience in your life, it not only becomes part of your memories, but it becomes part of that subconscious too. And we dream about it. And I have vivid memories as a kid of doing those dreams where you run and you're trying to fly, and if you're struggling with something, maybe you can't get off the ground in that dream, but in other times you run and you fly and you're, it's just so freeing. And after flying in space, I don't have those dreams anymore. I actually dream about the real life flying in space experience, being able to Superman through the space station, or just float in front of a window, or hang on by my toes to do work inside of the space station and stuff.
But is this psychological changes happening in the mind of the astronaut? Is it interesting for NASA to study, or do you think it's something which for now is overlooked?
I think it's very interesting for them. I don't know if you guys know, but part of our whole support team is a psychological support team as well. And we have, it was like every 2 weeks or so, we'd have a conference with our behavioral specialists, our psychological support team, just to make sure we're okay and everything. And it was always a nice conversation. And one of the doctors that was on my team is very interested in, kind of dream patterns, and if places that you're in affect your dreams, and do they help us psychologically, and that kind of thing. And so he would always ask me about what was going, in addition to, are you sleeping well and all that kind of stuff, it would be, well, what are you dreaming about? Are your dreams changing? And I think it might have been a personal interest for him, but I think he also felt like it was an important part of just this whole psychological schema that goes along with flying in space.
Thanks.
So, Nicole, I want to touch on something that you said earlier about left brain, right brain. And, I'm kind of the opinion that we all have both of them active, but we kind of focus on one or the other. And I know some engineers who are pure engineers in every aspect of their life, and artists who lead the most unstructured lives possible. But I think that all of us have that, and some of us allow it to come forward. And my background's as a scientist, but I've always appreciated the beauty of things of a photographer, and I like to write, and I understand the idea of trying to give that experience. And to me, it has always seemed that art and science, or left brain, right brain, are two different ways of experiencing or expressing really the same thing. And I wonder if that's what you see in your art, there's one thing to take a picture or a video, but your art just allows you, gives you the freedom to express things in another way. Are art and science really so different? I mean, science is entirely a creative endeavor, whether scientists see it or not. You're looking for something, trying to do things nobody has ever found out before. This is exploration of the highest order. So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I agree. You know, I may have, I think there's a funneling in school that happens too that we need to work on with our, you know, we could have a whole discussion about that. And I'm really trying to avoid that with my own son, you know, let him experience, you know, the well-rounded, you know, use your whole brain, kid. But I agree with you. And I think it is about creativity. It's about curiosity, wonder, all of those things that go hand in hand with both science and art. And at the end of the day, I think it comes best together as a form of communication. And it can be you know, a very technical, specific communication of the science, or it can be an artistic. And I see some things in the background in your, you know, in your office there that are communicating either, you know, our projected view of what it would be like to live someplace else, or what the universe that we know it looks like, and communicate it in an artistic way that I think we can have a much broader connection with people by doing that. And yeah, I love that along the way, you know, in the 28 years I worked for NASA, which I can't believe I mean, how could I possibly have worked 28 years, right? In the 28 years I worked for NASA, I kept this list along the way of all these people I've met that, unless you kind of have a way to find out, you don't know that they are doing really beautiful artistic stuff on the side. And that's everything from, you know, remodeling homes to beautiful paintings or music or, you know, whatever it might be, photography. But that's active in their lives as well. And I would argue too that the best engineers I've met are really wonderful artists. And like you said, Mike, they may not even realize that what they're doing could be considered artistic, but their designs and the creativity that goes along with that, the best ones are, I think, have an artsy side to them as well.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's a time in my life when I was doing mostly computer programming, in the old mainframe days, and I'd usually stay up all night doing that. And after a while, I realized this is a really creative thing. You know, it's not something you think of that way, but it is. And I think it's important point too that school tends to funnel people, and that we tend to think of people as scientists or engineers or STEAM now with science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. We tend to become one of those. And I think it's kind of a shame. You know, that I think it should not be something that you find out later that somebody you've been working with at NASA is actually doing this other thing on the side. It's not so much on the side. Maybe they're not getting paid as much, but it's a part of their lives. Yeah, and you know, what I find interesting too is if we look, you know, like from the educational standpoint too. So I think we can go through school, go through university, and not realize that some of this is in the background. It's like, I'm on the board of trustees at my university now, and I go back and I look at things a little bit differently. I'm trying to look at stuff from the student's perspective and what the university experience is like and all of that. And we had a couple of years ago the grand opening of our new arts and sciences building at the university. And I'm like, this college, this arts and it's typical at most universities to have an arts and sciences college. And I'm like, these two things are blended together in the name of our colleges, and yet we tend to, you know, push something between them. And I think maybe we need to go back and look at, okay, where's the origin of the arts and sciences college? Yes, it's a very
like
old.
Right in our face all the time, but we tend to like try to separate them.
Yeah, they used to be the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
But you go into the College of Arts and Sciences, and you don't find any classes where you have art and science together.
No. No.
So,
but I'd like to add that artists have been working with science for a long time. So it's in the art tradition, using science as a source of inspiration and also as a methodology is quite an established discipline. So maybe now the scientists are also discovering the other way around. So looking at the arts as a source of a different way of thinking, which is thinking outside the box, and which can also benefit the way they work.
Yeah, absolutely. And Danielle, I think we talked a little bit about, there's this conference coming up in Florence later this year, like Galileo to Mars, I think is the title of it. And it's through an art school, but it's really interesting to me how I think we're in a period again where NASA and the other space programs are starting to recognize that it's really important to incorporate artistic communication into our program so that we, first of all, can engage a broader audience, to understanding what it is we're doing, where we're planning to go, and what we'll do when we get there. But also, I think it's just inspiration. It's about, about thinking about the future in a positive way. And I'm very much a believer in this, this idea of see it, be it kind of thing. It's used in sports a lot, I know, but I think we can use it in the same way for how we see the future of our planet. And if we can artistically communicate how we see life on Earth in the future, and how we see life on the moon or Mars or on a space station orbiting Earth or any of those places in a positive way that's equitable to everybody that lives here and is, benefiting life for everyone here on Earth, I think we have a much higher likelihood of that succeeding than not, artistically presenting it.
And also it's really expanding our view upon what humanity is about. So as you mentioned earlier, the human space program, where is the human aspect? It's not just about the high degree of technology and technological intelligence, but also looking at the human in space from a larger perspective. So when we bring ourselves out there into outer space, we bring our entire being, so our also human side, our all our also psychological aspect and so on. So, and all of us have an artistic side, whether you are aware of it or not. So I think that it's something we carry with ourselves on a daily basis, and maybe most people are not aware of it.
Yeah, I think it's, what you said, you really hit it with this human aspect. I mean, it's why we have a human spaceflight program. There's the sense of exploration and stuff that is it's like just built into us. I am a believer in that. I mean, I look over I just moved into a new house. I look over the neighbor's fence to see what's next door. I mean, it's that kind of thing. We're always trying to figure out what's around us and how it impacts us and how we interact with it. And yeah, I think that humans in space is really bringing the human spirit to it. It's bringing our emotion and, our heart into it, to appreciate it in a way you can't necessarily by looking at a picture. But I think we can express through pictures and videos where we all fit into this. And I think it's really important that we continue to try to communicate that.
Right. I agree. And it is about reaching a broader audience, but I don't think it's because there are people who aren't interested in science, but they're interested in art. It's because we see the world in different ways. We have a different language, we have a different filter. And I've seen that with an exhibition of artworks around Mount Wilson Observatory. And I got to say, the people on the mountain that day did not look like our normal geeky visitors, quite a bit more dyed mohawks and a lot more skin piercings than we ordinarily see. But it was fascinating, and they were interested in how all of this related to the science and so on. It's just that they sort of have a different starting point, but we all come to the same place eventually.
Yeah, and I think if we all, I love watching people from all over, different backgrounds in front of a telescope, because you put somebody and they're looking at Saturn, the rings of Saturn,
Yeah.
And I think nothing humbles you like that. To be able to look at this other planet, I think you start thinking about yourself on a planet and this connection to these other planets that are out there. But you know, it's a humbling thing in a way that does not mean we're insignificant, though. You know,
Right.
there's a sense sometimes of, you know, how small Earth is in the grand scheme of the universe, and wow, we're just this insignificant little dot out here. But I can tell you that witnessing the Earth from space and knowing that everybody I know or will know is down there, it's just a reassurance of the significance of all of us and where we live. And it gets back to that same thing about, you know, and I don't know if it's like kumbaya moments or what, but we need to take care of each other, and we need to take care of the place we live.
Yeah,
It's just down to Maslow's hierarchy. It's a basic kind of thing we got to be doing.
And we're all part of something bigger. You know,
Yeah.
we're a small part, but of something bigger. I can tell you that by far the most common question, by orders of magnitude, that we get when showing somebody Saturn through a telescope for the first time is that a picture?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of an art thing. It's like, it's so beautiful and it's so amazing. I couldn't really be seeing it. It must be CGI or something like that. And this is a real experience. And that's an expansion of what people see as inaccessible and depicted in fantasy pictures to the real world or the real universe. They're now out there. And that is a mind-blowing experience. Maybe not as profound as flying in space, but it is of the same kind. I
agree. I don't, you know, you'll hear a lot. I think that a lot of people will talk about how, you know, this appreciation for where we are. You don't have to be in space to, you know, to have that happen. And I think that's totally true. You know, you take yourself out of your comfort zone, you know, things open up for you. You travel to someplace that's, you know, totally different to where you live on a daily basis, and it makes you more aware of the people and the planet that you're on. And that's why I love taking my son on trips around the world, you know, to different places. It's for him to have an appreciation that everybody doesn't live the same way we do, but oh my gosh, we're still on we're on the same planet, and look how different it looks here, and that's okay. That's okay.
Well, we've talked a lot about art, but we haven't shown your art yet, so let's do that. Sooner or later, we ought to get to the artistic astronaut's art too. And here we have a picture of you, sort of a famous picture of you painting, creating the first artwork painted in space. Not afterwards, but you did this while you were there. What inspired you to do this on ISS?
Well, you know, it was really a simple thing because before you fly, it's that same behavioral health team. They ask you, you know, you get a little kit. When we were flying on shuttle up, you got like this little kit of personal stuff you could take, and you know, that would be pictures of your family, and you know, I took my son's little stuffed animal and a t-shirt for my school, and you know, stuff like that. But you could take other things with you too. And so I just decided that, you know, I'd like to paint while I'm there. There was no, you know, I didn't even imagine at that time what I'd be doing right now. You know, it didn't even feed into that at all. But it was fun. I'm so glad I did. It was just a little watercolor kit that I took. And the brush I have there is actually a brush of a friend of mine. You might know him. His name is Ron Woods, and he's a wonderful artist, artist. And that was his brush from his early painting artist mentor. And so I flew it for him, and he said I could paint with it. So I did. And so it was really special for me to have that brush up there too. And I ended up painting something that I, at the time, and I still think was one of the most beautiful places I saw on Earth. And it's a little chain of islands on the northern coast of Venezuela called Las Rocas. And to me, when I looked at the Earth, it looked like a wave, like somebody had just drawn a wave on the ocean. And so I picked it as my subject up there. And it's been the subject of some of my artwork since coming home too. But there's an evolution, I think, that you go through when you're looking through the window and from space, and that's, And I think it's a lot like what we do down here too. You know, when I looked through the window at first, I wanted to see something familiar. I mean, I was amazed by whatever I saw, but I wanted to see Florida from space, you know, where I grew up. And then it becomes kind of a geography lesson, and, you know, seeing things and letting your brain wrap around the fact that your friend Al's not going to fall off the bottom of the space station, and, you know, and things like that. And then I think ultimately it just evolves into, you know, what, I don't even care where it is, but what beautiful thing, what beautiful surprise am I going to see when I look at Earth today? You know, what artwork is the Earth going to present to me? And that's what that wave was to me. It was like the Earth, like God through the Earth was presenting some piece of art to me. And so it's been a wonderful inspiration. And there's a lot more that comes from, you know, you get to take a lot of pictures while you're up there. And I can tell you, there's a lot of inspiration in the files I have on my computer to work from.
And I've thrown an audible at Liam, asking him to bring up the last two images we have here so we can see the wave, two different versions of that directly. Liam, I don't see him yet.
I have a question for Nicole. Maybe it's not, it's a little bit banal, but I wonder, how did you manage painting in space with the zero gravity issue?
You know, it was one of those things. I worried about it at first because I thought, wow, this is going to be really hard to manage and all of that. And because one of the most difficult things about living in space in a microgravity environment like we have on the space station is just keeping track of your stuff. You know, we got Velcro everywhere. Everything's got Velcro or a tether on it. And, you know, so I was worried just about how to keep track of everything. And it ended up being a lot simpler than I thought it was going to be. Just really had to be thoughtful about it. And it was more about not making a mess, I think, than being difficult. And, you know, because of the way water and liquids behave up there, you have to be pretty thoughtful about that. You don't want stuff splattering all over. Although I do think it would be fun to get inside a glove box and just let paint do what it's going to do.
Oh, yeah. This is Jackson Pollock in space.
Yeah, yeah. And Richard Garriott actually did a little experiment with squirting some things around while he was there. But for me, it was just once you realize what you'd have to do, and I had that paintbrush, and you just take a drink bag and squirt out a little ball of water and stick the brush into it, and it's really cool. It was kind of cool to just watch the whole thing happen because, you know, water and liquids, they're just the wicking and the surface tension, the way, and so talk about mixing science in, you know, into the art, but, you know, you can just stick the brush there and it just sucks the water into it, and then, you know, you mush it around on the paint and get the color all up in the brush. And then it was kind of fun to watch how the paint transferred itself from the brush to the paper too, because the paper wanted to suck it away from the brush. And so it was just fun. I mean, it really was fun. I really only got to do that one painting while I was there. I played around a little bit with some other things, but didn't do an actual another painting. And I'm so thankful to my crewmate, Bob Thirsk, for taking that picture, because otherwise I'd have no, you know, like physical memory of it, other than I do have the painting at home.
So
yeah. And I did bring the brush home to Ronnie Woods, but I still have my crew, my colleagues on board the station in search of the paint kit, because I left it there thinking other people might want to paint and didn't think I should bring it home with me.
So you had not full control of the movement of the pigment of the color.
Well, you did in a way that, I mean, yes, you directed, just like you do here, you know, directing the brush along the paper, but it was fun to watch how it would pull the paint and the water out of the brush and kind of spread it across. You know, you almost didn't have to mush it around on the paper as much as you would down here.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun.
There. So I know that Liam had a little bit of a technical issue there, and then he finally brought up the wave here. I'm not sure, Liam, if you showed that painting up there to everybody. We kind of lost sync there a little bit with the technical problem.
So the wave is based on what you view from the cupola, or is it an imaginary, something, an image that was impressed in your mind that you wanted to recreate in painting?
Well, the wave was, I had to, you know, the way I painted up there the first time was, and that we didn't have the cupola module at that point, so I would have taken the picture through the service module window on the Russian segment. And it was, when I was deciding what I wanted to paint the first time, I really was just, I scanned through the photos I had taken, and I knew of the places I had seen through the window that that I wanted to paint, and that was one of them. And so I just found a picture to use and then used it as kind of my guide, because sadly you can't sit in front of the window and keep something in view for very long.
Okay.
You know, you have to, you know, if you're not ready with the camera to take a picture of it, it's going to be gone before, you know, before you can get the camera ready. And so I really had to rely on, you know, rely on an image I had taken from space. And I'm using those now too as kind of the inspiration for the paintings that I'm doing here as well. You know, trying to base it on something I know I saw from space. And the way I do that is just through the pictures that I have available.
So, okay, so Liam just changed the pictures around. Liam, if we can go back to that one, the wave. I was going to ask you, we have two pictures from you. There we go.
Yeah.
So is this a photo of that area?
So this is based on a photo, and what I did with this one, I read about this technique, and so I thought I'd try it at first, because one of the things that I really want to do is take what I saw and then embellish it in some way that kind of brings out a pointed piece of the beauty, like enhances the beauty of the image in some way, to reflect a little bit more of how I felt when I saw it through the window. And so this piece is like a 20 by 24. And what I did was I had the image printed on metal, and then so it is a picture on metal, and then I embellished that with some sea glass and some paint and some sand as well, and I really love it. It's it turned out really nice. And I did another one of these with a picture I took of Australia, of a salt lake there that looks like a big pink flower, and I don't think I sent you guys that one, but it did the same technique on that. And then I later painted the whole thing. I just took a blank piece of metal and did like a 2 foot by 3 foot version. It's a lot bluer, and embellished it as well with some sea glass and stuff, but just painted it from scratch onto the metal.
And there is a wonderful painting called Sunset Sunrise from Earth, from the space station, that we showed also on the blog, which you also have next to you, Nicole.
Yeah, and that's what I just finished it, and I just started. So we had talked at one point about, you know, what kind of pictures or what image in your mind like represents the spaceflight experience, and you know, there's those top three and of like physically being there in the experience. But I think when I think about my spaceflight, the one kind of picture that really sums it up for me is a sunrise or a sunset picture. And so I've started a series of those based on pictures I took, and it probably won't be a great view through the thing, but this is one of those paintings. And the reason I think that it kind of sums up the experience is you look at it, and yeah, it's a still image of a sunrise or a sunset, and that is a very dynamic thing that happens when you look at it through the window. I mean, either way, you know, the colors are just really dramatically changing and glowing as it happens. So it's a very dynamic thing going on every 45 minutes when, you know, when you're getting one of them. And so when I look at the picture, I know that happened for me. I know that 16 times a day I saw one of these really beautiful sunrises or sunsets out the window. And I know that it represents to me the speed that I was traveling, you know, 17,500 miles an hour. And then it just beautifully captures this still, you know, kind of moment that went on in that. And there's kind of a classic picture that out there, and a couple station crew members have taken it, but I have one that Jeff Williams took when we left station on STS-129 after my first flight, and it's kind of that sunrise. No, it would have been a sunset, and very orange sky with the blue, and then and then the Earth and the black way out there, and then this just silhouette of the space shuttle against the lines of the sunset, and that to me is like the perfect memory of flying in space. It includes the space shuttle, and I mean, I know I was in that vehicle, and then just that memory of this beauty you would see out the window every 45 minutes, just incredible.
And Liam is showing a feed directly from the International Space Station now, where the sun just rose a little while ago, flying over the South Pacific Ocean now. We'll let him talk about how you can get watch this all the time here in just a little while when we close. So let's look at some of the art pieces that we do have from you. And Liam, I'm going to go back to ISS 133 there whenever you get a chance. You like to show a lot of different aspects of the flight, things that I guess mean the most to you. We even have a view that was not too dissimilar than what we just saw there. Well, we're flipping through a couple.
Yeah, that was from the gallery. Well, yeah, I mean, just to kind of, it was important to me. That's that pink flower there. But it was important to me I think there were kind of two themes in what I'm painting. One is, and my husband calls them the collections, the spacecraft collection and the Earth observation collection. And I think it applies quite nicely. But so I want to make sure that I use my artwork to inform people, make them aware that we have a space station, that we're doing really cool things in space. And, so this painting here was based on an image I took as we were departing the space station on STS-133. That was the final flight of Discovery. And I think that there's such beauty in the space station itself. I think you could paint any part of the space station and it would be a wonderful subject for, for a painting. Any one of those little pieces of that solar array, or, the way the light shines off of the different modules and that kind of thing. But to me, it was important to show, just the station as a whole against that horizon of our planet. And it's based on a picture I took from space. So there's this spacecraft collection. We have a space program. We're doing really wonderful things. We're cooperating as, a global community on this beautiful masterpiece that, is falling around our Earth every day. And go ahead.
Well, I was going to say we have another one from the spacecraft collection, but also the Earth. This is a combination of the two. The Soyuz, as seen from the window of ISS over South Africa.
Yes, and
I don't see yet, but Liam is going to switch to it any moment, I assume.
And this was, it's a picture that I took from station. So that's a painting of, I call it Night Launch. It's based on an image that's a friend of mine took of launch, and it's a little bit exaggerated, kind of an exaggerated view of the exhaust and plume of the space shuttle. But I can tell you, when you're launching on that space shuttle, you feel like that there is this fire and rumbling below you that, from a perspective wise, would be that big. I mean, it just sends you off the planet. So that's kind of what I was getting at in that painting, is that, if you just look at the shuttle and the exhaust coming out of the solid rocket boosters in the engine there, it looks pretty tame, but all of that orange and swirling below it, in your mind when you're launching on the vehicle, that's what you are thinking, is that, wow, there's a lot of action going on behind me that's helping get me off the planet.
There is also some green pigment, right? Or grayish pigment in the
There is. There's a lot of
exhaust.
golds and there's some browns, and you know, I mix the blues in with those golds, and it gives a little bit of a greenish tint to it, and I've seen that before too in the, you know, in the real images of launches. If you get down and really look into the plume of the exhaust, there's all these beautiful colors in there. That's why I like, you know, Robert McCall, the artwork he did with you know, showing these beautiful rumbling plumes from the spacecraft. Just, I think it's a perfect way to present it. More of the feeling of it than necessarily the way it really looks.
Absolutely.
And I threw a curve at Liam. I had the order wrong, but the next one now is the one I was talking about. It's going to show part of the spacecraft, or a couple of spacecraft here attached to the ISS over South Africa. In South Africa, now did it look like that to you? Is this a little bit impressionist or what?
This is a little bit impressionist, and actually I have the picture. If you want to see the picture, let's see, I'll try to show it in the same perspective. So this is the image that painting is based on. And you can see the, you know, the Earth looks a little bit different in the picture, but the way I painted it with kind of the streaks of the pinks and the blues and the golds and silver colors, when I would look at South Africa, and there's areas of Australia that look the same way. I mean, it really does. That's, in my mind, that's what I remember seeing when I was over those places, was just this, it was almost, I don't know, Monet is not the right artist, but those kinds of colors blended across, you know, across the Earth were what I remember seeing. And this was a painting that somebody asked me to do for them, and I really like it. I think it turned out okay. And you know, I think there will be the critics that will say, oh, well, the Earth doesn't look exactly like the Earth would, you know, the land would look, but that is what I remember seeing, is those colors just kind of like feathered together on, you know, on the Earth. And this was the time where I did try to get pretty accurate with the spacecraft. And fortunately, the Soyuz and the Progress are, they're nice subjects. I don't want to say it was easy because it wasn't, but there's, you know, having the image to work from, and you know, getting the chance to do the real detail, and that was fun as well, against the contrast of kind of the impressionisty Earth.
So I guess if you wanted to see exactly what it looked like, you'd just look at the photograph. I mean, that's not the purpose of the artwork.
You know, that's kind of the way I feel too, is that part. I mean, a big part of this to me is enhancing the painting in a way that brings out like particular aspects of the beauty in a way that aren't necessarily real in the, you know, in the image. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but you know, to try to just capture what I remember versus just copying it from a picture.
I think this painting really shows very well the first person perspective. So I can really see that in front of the Soyuz, there is a person looking at the Earth. And that is her particular perspective, and her eyes are interpreting the image in that particular way. So I think this shows very strongly in this image.
Yeah, and that interpretation is probably the important part of vision. I mean, we have photons hitting our eyes. We can describe what goes on, but our brains are not cameras, and we get impressions from them. We don't record every detail. We record a lot of other things, and that's what I think art can bring out in this way.
And it brings the viewer also in the same perspective. So while I look at it, I immediately embody somehow Nicole's perspective of space, which I think is a completely different experience than looking at an image that is taken by a satellite or purely as a scientific record of what's happening.
Of course. Well, I think we need to get to one very important project that Nicole is involved in back down here on Earth. It actually is taking place on Earth and in space, and that is the Spacesuit Art Project. And Liam, I think you have a couple of photos of that, so we can bring. Oh, there we go. That's beautiful.
Yeah, you know, this project is, I honestly believe that, you know, my partners in crime there in this image. So if you look at this picture, I'm in the blue, and then we have the Hope spacesuit in the middle there. The really cool guy leaning on his elbow there is Gordon Andrews. He's with the ISS Program Communications Office, and then Ian Sion in the dark jacket. The artistic genius, quite honestly, behind this project. And he's the director of arts and medicine at the MD Anderson Cancer Center in the pediatric cancer center there. And he has done several really wonderful large-scale art projects out of the individual kids' artwork from the hospital. And he had this inspiration from space to do these spacesuits, and the ISS program office stepped on board. They invited me to participate, and I can tell you, I think that the reason I flew in space was so I could participate in things like this. I really do. This is the most meaningful thing I think I've ever supported, and I'm really looking forward to this being the first of many of these kinds of things where I can take the spaceflight experience that I've had and this artsy thing that's going on with me right now that I hope goes on for a long time, and pull those things together in a way that is actionable in a very different way than I've ever experienced before. And working with these kids is, inspiration doesn't even begin to describe it. I mean, we always get told as astronauts, we're the ones coming in and we're doing all the inspiring of the group that we're coming to talk to. And I can tell you that is just a tiny piece of what goes on in these art studios with these children. And the strength and courage and hope that they have is really, really impressive. And so I can keep rambling about this forever. I will tell you that we have this suit, the Hope suit, which was built. If you get a chance to go online and check this out and look at it, it's just stunning. And I hope everybody gets a chance to see it in person sometime. But each little piece of artwork in there was done by a child at the MD Anderson Center. And then ILC Dover, who is our other partner. I wish Dave Graziosi was in this picture as well. ILC Dover, the company that builds all of our real spacesuits for NASA and for flying in space, they are the ones that are building these suits for us. And they've volunteered their time and talent to doing that. And this first Hope suit is quilted together from all of those kids' artwork, little individual canvases. And then if you go, I think you have one more picture from this project. Yeah, so this was a really special day because some of those same children that painted on that Hope suit also got to paint on a flight suit version that we did, and they painted directly onto the flight suit. And this picture is from a day where we were actually in mission control in Houston, and we had several of those kids there with us. And in the background, I hope you can see Kate Rubens is wearing the flight suit version of the suit that we did, and it's named Courage. And Ian, our artistic genius, you know, I have to tell you, his initial plan with this art and space project was, his first idea in NASA was that he should go to the space station and do art as an artist in residence on the space station, which I think is a wonderful idea. And they talked him down from that a little bit, you know, that wasn't going to happen anytime soon. And so then he was thinking, well, we could figure out a way to wrap the station itself in the kids' artwork, you know, either virtually or, you know, physically somehow wrap the station in the artwork. And then we ended up with this, the spacesuit idea. But it was a big part of the goal for him, I think, and it was important. And I think we proved it out that it was important to get something to space that's part of this project. And we were able, with the support of, you can see Ellen Ochoa in the picture, and the NASA Johnson Space Center and the station program, and also with ILC Dover, to get that flight suit to the space station. And Kate Rubens, our astronaut on board now, wore it for a video conference with the kids in mission control, and that suit's name is Courage. And we have one more suit that's in work that I think is really important. Its name is Unity, and it's going to be like the first suit, Hope, quilted together from lots of different artwork. But we are basing that suit on the relationships that we have built and the successful and peaceful work that we're doing on the International Space Station. And Ian and I have just finished our world tour to all the different partner headquarters cities for the space station program. And we've painted with children and the local astronauts and cosmonauts in Tokyo and Moscow, in Cologne, Germany, and then just these past couple days in Montreal, Canada. And all of that artwork is going to be collected, and Ian's going to go work with the guys at ILC Dover, and they again are going to build this suit Unity, and I cannot wait to see it. It's a different pattern for the canvases. They're going to be triangles this time, and I think that it will be really interesting to see how there'll be pieces that you'll be able to say, okay, that must have been a kid from Russia that painted that, or a child from Japan or something. But I think what the most important thing about it is going to be that it's just all going to blend together beautifully into one international spacesuit, and just be this really just incredible representation of what we can do. There's the beauty and positive and peaceful things that can be done when we all just come together from around the world.
Well, I think that's a great representation of that. Might even drive it home more than the space station itself, because we know intellectually there are all these partners there. And sometimes we see crews from, well, we always see crews from a few different countries, but piecing it all together and seeing that this is children's artwork. This is, it doesn't have to do with where they are as much as the fact that they're all children. They're all going through the same thing with their battle against cancer. So I'm looking forward to see that too.
But it's wonderful that they grow up with this idea of being a part of this global community, which is something that really it's important to communicate to younger generation.
Well, and I think that's, I mean, that was one of the main things that Ian wanted to get, communicate through this artwork, is that, when we talk to these kids, we're talking to them as artists, and we're trying to separate them from, this experience in some way that they're going, this challenge that they're going through in their lives right now. And a big part of what Ian has done with his other pieces has been that, yeah, each of these individual pieces of artwork that these kids do is beautiful on its own, but look how much more beautiful it is when it all gets pulled together. Even when it's just artwork from kids all at the same hospital, that Hope spacesuit and Courage when it was on space station, it's stunning. I mean, it is just stunning. And to think about all of the individual stories that are behind it, and how each of those kids is now part of something much bigger than just themselves. And there's just this beautiful visual representation of it through those suits. And when Kate showed up on the big screen, and I got the goosebumps thinking about it, with Courage, with that suit on, the only thing I could think to say to her was like, holy moly, we are witnessing the first art exhibition in space. It was like an art exhibit in space. And it just, it brought the station to life around her too. Just, it's just overwhelmingly impressive. Like everything I experienced on that space station, those two words, awesome and overwhelmingly impressive, are the words that just go along with all of it.
And all these children will remember it forever. I think it's something that we'll never forget.
Yeah, and the way Kate got to talk to them, they each had the chance to speak to her, and she had met them. We took her before she flew down to paint on that suit as well. So some of her artwork is on there too. And, again, I think it's that kind of contrast between being separated from people in one way, but being connected in a totally new and different way. And these kids have a connection with her and with that suit that, yeah, like you say, they'll have that as part of their lives forever.
Maybe one day it would be nice if all of them were meeting all together.
Yes, and we do have plans. We want to have all three of the suits and travel them around and exhibit and have the, kids get to see them all, and we do have some grander goals for it. I think that part of this was certainly to raise awareness for childhood cancer, and if we can take this to the next step where that actionable thing, beyond this engagement with these kids, beyond the, the really wonderful things that have come through it that way, if we can now do something that is tangible, is meaningful in a way to cancer research or prevention or early detection, for these kids and their families and for other kids down the road to not have to experience that, then I think that's something we need to do, and we're looking at finding the path for doing that right now.
So we have gone well over an hour. I would like to continue this for 3 hours. There's so much more we could talk with you about. Liam has brought up his view from the space station along with some other information. They're going over the Caribbean right now. I want to mention that these views are available to everyone in a couple different ways, I guess, but that this other information that is there and showing the pass and so on, yeah, keep it on that, Liam, and comes from Liam's own device, ISS Above, which shows you where the space station is at any time and gives you an alert whenever it's over you, because it goes over people quite often, but we only see it during passes in near twilight. So this is really very, very informative and a lot of fun. So there are these all over. And these are live feeds from ISS as well. So Liam, thanks for bringing us those. And check out ISS-Above for those who are interested in looking that up. I have one of them here on my desk here as well, that if I could find anything on my desk, I would show you. Just a little box run by a Raspberry Pi. So Nicole, we have a couple of questions that I think we should ask. We only have 2, so we'll ask you those 2.
Okay.
And we have one from someone who asks, this is something I don't know if any of us have an answer for this, or who could, who commented, beautiful art, she loves your artwork. Any advice on how a business degree graduate with an art background can start a science career? Maybe Daniela has some ideas of that. As someone who has been studying actively for 3 years to catch yourself up in astronomy and earth science. I don't know what to suggest for that.
I think it's never too late to change direction. So
absolutely.
Just start from somewhere, and if you have a great interest in the topic, I'm sure you will manage to do what you love. So. That's
my feeling as well, is that whatever entree there is into something going on in science that you love, if it's astronomy and astronomy and earth science, you knock on some doors in places that you'd be interested in. And if you have somebody has a unique or unusual combination of experiences or skills or perspectives, is very, very valuable. And if you get to a place where they say, well, we don't need any artists, you don't want to be there anyway. But you'll find out.
Well, and I think you just showed a really cool tool. Liam's tool, that ISS Above, to look at something like that, and there'll be aspects of that tool, like information that's presented, that I think you'll want to know more about. I mean, I think it will certainly suck you right into figuring out when that pass overhead is, and looking for the space station. And I would like to promote your website too, Mike, with the Astronomers Without Borders. There's wonderful information through there, and the AstroArtist program, and you know, those different feeds that can give you, I think, just something to look at to begin with. You know, so there'll be something on that page, I guarantee you, that will interest you and be beautiful to you, or, you know, that you want to just learn more about. And then I would say too, you know, depending on where you are, there's usually a university around that has, even if you're not talking about going back and getting a degree in, you know, astronomy or something, but just if there's a university around, or even a community college around, most of the time they will have an astronomy club that you can go and just hang out with. And you know, that's a really great door to knock on.
Yeah.
And people that are into stuff like astronomy, or I can tell you like flying, or, you know, they love to share what they are doing. And so you would not meet roadblocks that way. So I would definitely suggest that.
Yeah, I agree. You already have degrees in experience. You don't need a degree in science. You know, you life. You know, you make plans in life, and I don't know anybody whose plans worked out the way they thought they would. And if you expose yourself to a lot of different things and pick your path as the doors open up for you, it will be way better than your plan, because you'll discover yourself along the way. So I think that's the way to do it. Astronomy clubs, they are everywhere. I think that's a good way. Just meet some people and see what comes of it. It's a good way to do it.
So I know artists, professional artists, who come from a completely different background, economics or engineering, and then they become professional artists. So it's very, I would say nowadays.
Astronaut becomes an artist.
Yes, exactly. Also,
so, and you know, there is one question that is, I know for very accomplished people like you, Nicole, you get this kind of question a lot. I think in the context of what we were just discussing and how your path changes and why it changes, as well as the challenges represented by the art on the spacesuit art project, it sounds like a mundane question in a way. I know it's a regular question. During your career, did you experience failure moments, and how did you overcome them? But I think in the context of the discussion we're having here, that's a very relevant question.
So failure moments, like what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Times when you failed, and how did you overcome them? And there's, well, you know, and everybody has them. If you don't have them, you're
you're lying. Yeah.
Or you're doing something completely wrong.
Yeah, you're completely unaware, maybe, that you had them. And then that impacts all the people around you, I think. Yeah, you know, one of the interesting things about training and flying in space, and it's one of the key lessons you learn right away. And I think for the most part, people have learned it before they even get to that stage. But you know, when you're launching on a space shuttle and it takes you 8.5 minutes to get to space, and stuff is happening fast, and there is a lot of potential for things to go wrong. And part of that potential exists in the human being pushing the wrong button, or, you know, doing something you shouldn't have, or making the wrong call, whatever it might be. And one of the things you really have to get over and be able to move on from is if you're the one that does that. If you're the one that pushes the wrong button or makes the wrong call, you have got to accept, first of all, that it happened. And you've got to be able, for the sake of the success of the mission, figure out how to quickly deal with it and move on. And yeah, you might have a conversation about it later, but I think that's an exaggerated example of what we just need to do in life in general. And it's going to be things with your family, with your friends, with your career, with what you're doing in school, you know, studying. I mean, you know, a failure could be literally a failure on a test or something. But I think the way we respond to it is what actually ends up making us stronger for the next time. And it's what will lead to success in the grand scheme of things, is how you can deal with things when they don't go right. And I know that's happened to me many times along the way. And I don't know, I can't think of a particular example to use right now, okay, other than to say, I think you just really, there's there's an acceptance that, or I think you have to accept that you're not going to be perfect at everything. And I think you have to accept that maybe the decisions you would like other people to make on your behalf aren't always going to go the way you want. And what I've found, quite honestly, is when, for instance, I interviewed for the Astronaut Office 2 times. I was really surprised to even get the first interview, quite honestly. And, you know, went through the whole process. It was a really cool process. There were 20 other people there with me that week, you know, going through this interview cycle themselves. And I remember looking around me and thinking, you know, holy moly, Nikki, you just, you know, go with it, roll with it, have a good time. You don't stand a chance. These people are super smart and they're doing really cool things. And so how could there be anything about you and what you've done that will stand out for you to be selected? And so I treated it like I'm gonna have fun and get to know these people. And I didn't get selected that first time. But I can tell you, as much as I thought I was prepared for not being selected, it was still really like, well, you know, it was an emotional thing. I had to deal with it and then move on. And 2 years later, I was fortunate enough to interview again, and I still was like, wow, you know, how's this happening? How did they, you know, they didn't want me the last time. Why are they calling me back again? And, you know, and going to do this. And I think by appreciating the opportunity I was being given, appreciating the people I was having the chance to meet through this whole process, made me less sensitive to the fact that I might not get selected, and that would be okay. And I was doing something that I really loved doing, even if I never got selected to be an astronaut. And I think that's part of the important thing too, is, you know, every step along the way, you should be enjoying what you're doing. You should be finding something that you really are passionate about, that it feels like an adventure, you know, when you're doing it every day. And that's different for everyone. You know, there's things my friends do that how do you do that every day? And they love it. And they can't imagine flying in space. They can't imagine even thinking about doing something like that. And I think when you open yourself up, like Mike, like you said, to the things that you enjoy doing, it's amazing what opportunities come from that, even when you're not successful every step of the way.
Right. I'd add that, especially with, well, in science, you know, you're always trying to find out something new, and sometimes it doesn't work out because you don't know what it is. If you knew about it already, you wouldn't be doing the study to try and figure it out. Sometimes it works out, meets your hypothesis, sometimes it doesn't. In Astronomers Without Borders, I start things all the time. I have grand ideas, and we start it, you know, and it doesn't work out. And some of them you learn enough to see where the missing pieces are, and you make it happen another time. And most of them, they just never happen, or they stay on your wish list or something like that. But you learn from each one of those, and you move on to something else. And it's just part of life.
You know, you mentioned that science thing. I think it's so neat, and it's one of the things we're trying to adapt better to on the space station. Is, you know, what I am not a scientist by trade. I'm an engineer, and but what I know of laboratory work is that some of the most compelling, some of the most important discoveries that we have made in a laboratory setting have been when what you hypothesized or what you thought you were going for takes a totally different, like detours, like something just surprises you, and then, oh my gosh, there's a, you know, now we have a treatment for this, or we have this new material, or some, you know, way to maintain our food, or whatever it is, but it was completely different than what you had set off on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that's wonderful that, you know, we can be surprised that way.
That's the best. I forget who it was, and I can only paraphrase the quote, but the most interesting thing in science is not, well, we proved that, but wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's what really leads to that stuff. Yeah. So cool. I think that, you know, we've gone close to an hour and a half, and I hope, I don't think that's going to be too long for most people's attention spans, because this has been such a great program. And Nicole, I have to, you know, I don't know if I am surprised we haven't gotten a question about it, maybe I'm the only one that's distracted by things like this, but over your right shoulder there's a hand, and you just have to tell us what that is.
Well, that, excuse me 1 second.
Okay. So I don't know. There got to be people out there going, what the heck is that? Because I know I did when I first talked to her.
I think it's really cool that you noticed that too. I think we talked about this the last time. I'm not sure, but this is my hand, and it's actually just a plaster mold of my hand, and my spacewalking gloves were custom made from molds like this, and I love it because it's ILC Dover is the guys who make our gloves for the spacesuit as well, and I think it's so cool now that have this connection with the spacesuit art project too, and
right.
and they have, oh my gosh, they have been so wonderful and generous and just like key to that project being successful. And so now every time I look at this hand, I'm thinking about them and what they're doing. I almost want to paint it all different colors now.
Well, that's something done purely for engineering.
Yep.
Which is a great little art piece.
Yeah, it is. And it's, if you watch the, what was the show growing up with the hand? Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
The Munsters. The Munsters, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, right.
And no, it wasn't the Munsters. It was...
Addams Family.
Addams Family, yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's
fantastic. Yep.
So I think that sometimes when I see it, but yeah, this is a really cool work of art, and they don't have to give you this. This could just go in the trash can, really, because they develop a really cool computer model from it. But it's neat, and I look at it, and I did not miss my calling as a hand model, that's for sure. When I see this, but it's a wonderful memory of that whole experience.
Well.
Yeah.
Nicole, before we wrap up, can I also ask to please tell everybody who is watching where will you be next? So when can they meet you and see your art?
Well, I think the next thing I'm going to be doing is over in Florence, Italy, with the Galileo to Mars. It's a small conference. I probably will take some of my artwork there, but I think the best thing would be in mid-January, we're gonna, with the Spacesuit Art Project, we're hoping to have all 3 suits, and in Houston at the Space Center Houston, the visitor center for Johnson Space Center, their main gallery area, we're gonna have the 3 suits on display, and we're also pulling together a sci-art themed exhibit around that. And so we'll have some of these people I've had on my list over the years display the science techie side of what they've been doing in their life and the artistic side, and we're going to ask them to communicate in a few sentences how those 2 things have worked together for them. So I will have some of my artwork there as well. And then I'm not really sure what else will be going on next year, but I will definitely, on my website, I'm hoping to get that updated, and also was talking to you guys a little bit about how to get an online gallery and shop going so that I can get my artwork out there a little bit more as well.
Yeah, I was asking because I'd be interested, but I'm not asking details because this is pretty special art. Yeah. I don't think it's going to end up on my wall, but hopefully prints or something like that. Yeah. So there are some that I really like there. And Liam, I'm going to ask you to show your face so that people can see the face behind the magic here. And there we are. And ISS above, which has got a feed in the back there. Liam is set up in his home office from which he runs his company Image Beam, which is video production and does live events and things like this for Planetary Society and others. And he's been a friend for a long time. He's traveled with me to some strange or unusual places like Iran, and where astronomers without borders really sort of started. And his ISS above is really a phenomenal thing as well. So thank you, Liam. And I was thinking of another Brit friend. This is Liam.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks, Liam. Really great.
I want to give a shout out to Pedro Cesar in Argentina, who has been translating some of Nicole's quotes to the Astronomers Without Borders Spanish language page on Facebook. So thanks for doing that, Pedro. And thank you so much, Nicole, for joining us, and Daniela for adding the art aspects as well. It's been a real pleasure, and it's been an honor to have you as part of Astronomers Without Borders. And I really hope to continue the collaboration with all the neat things that I'm sure you have coming up that you don't even know about yet.
Well, I so appreciate you guys involving me, and I have a feeling this will be going on for a while, and we will continue to stay in touch. And I would be happy to do another one of these sometime if we want to continue this topic or find another one. It was really fun, and I hope there were people out there that enjoyed it, as much as I did, and very thankful for being included. Thanks,
I'd like to thank also Nicole for bringing all these aspects of spaceflight, which we didn't know about. And it was really a pleasure to be able to open up so much and ask you so many questions that maybe are not the most conventional questions that you would ask to an astronaut. So thank you so much for your openness. And it was fantastic to have you in our program. It's really a pleasure.
Oh, absolutely. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. So from me and Liam in Southern California, Daniela in the Netherlands, Nicole at home in Florida, I want to thank everyone for tuning in, everyone who's watching this in the archives later. I'm sure this is going to get a lot of airplay. And thank you for tuning in, and feel free to leave comments about it and questions. Maybe we'll get them over to Nicole sometime anyway. So thanks again, and we hope to see you next time on the next program we have.